Hello everyone, Breadboo here, and today I'm going to walk you through how to make a queen-sized canopy bed for around $150. This bed is beautiful, all solid wood. If you tried to buy this on Wayfair or Amazon, things like that, and nice wood like this, you're going to spend around $1,000+. So really you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck, and it's pretty simple to build. Let's start off with the materials list. What you're going to need is 17 1x4x8s, 2 1x3x8s, 1 1x2x8, 5 2x4x12s, 2 2x10x8s, 4 4x4x8s, some 2.5-inch Kreg screws, and some 1.25-inch Kreg screws. Now you're also probably going to need a brad nailer and 1.25-inch brad nails. If you don't have that, you could use screws, but brad nails are going to look better. So, now that we're all unloaded, let's get started. What we want to do is start with our 4x4 bedposts. We are going to cut all 4 of these at 80 inches each and set them aside. Make sure your miter saw is cutting straight and set to 0 so you do not accidentally cut these at an angle, as they are the most expensive piece of wood in this project. The next step is to cut out 4 2x4s for the headboard and footboard. These will be cross sections to the headboard and footboard, and we are going to cut them at 60 inches each. So again, that's 4 2x4s cut to 60 inches each. Now, be warned, this measurement can change if you're using a different bed-sized mattress. I'm showing you how to build a queen version of this bed. I modified these plans a bit from the original, but if you want to see the original plan, which lists materials needed for any size version of this bed, from twin all the way to king size, visit the link in my description below to see Anna White's original plans. Now you should have 8 cut pieces of wood. The 4 4x4s at 80 inches and the 4 2x4s at 60 inches. We are going to get started by building the bed's headboard. To do this, you will need to lay down 2 of the 4x4s on the ground or on a large work surface. Then take your 2x4s and drill pocket holes on each end of them. Make sure your Kreg Jig is set to 1.5 inch board thickness and that your drill bit is set to 1.5 inch thickness. You can use the groove built into the Kreg Jig to do this. All you need to do is loosen it and tighten it with an Allen key and then line up the drill bit with the setting you want. Once you have the drill bit and the board thickness set up properly, you can put your 2x4 in the Kreg Jig, clamp it down, and drill 2 holes on each end of the 2x4s. Once you have your pocket holes on the 2x4s, you can lay them down in between the 2 4x4s that you set down earlier. Make your top 2x4s pocket holes face upward so that they cannot be easily seen, and set your eye level 2x4 with pocket holes facing downward. Again, anytime you're building with pocket holes, do your best to hide the pocket holes. It'll make your project look better. As far as alignment here, you'll want the top 2x4 to be flush with the top of the 4x4s, and the middle one set 28 inches from the top of the 4x4s. Make sure it's 28 inches from the top on both sides. Once everything is lined up, you can attach these 2 boards to the 4x4s using Kreg screws and your Kreg bit. Okay, so now you have something that is kind of, starting to resemble a headboard. Let's finish it up. What we want to do now is cut out 1x4s at 60 inches each for the cross pieces. You will need to cut out 9. So yes, that's 9 1x4s at 60 inches. Once you have the 9 1x4s cut, lay them on a flat surface and cut out 3 1x3s at around 30 inches. These 1x3s will be used to connect all these 1x4s together. Before you connect anything though, you should drill 2 Kreg holes on each side of the 1x4s so you can attach it to the headboard later. I also drilled 3 or 4 pocket holes along the top side of one of the 1x4s so I could have an extra point of connection. Make sure you have set your Kreg Jig and Kreg bit properly to account for the new smaller board thickness. Once you have all the pocket holes drilled on each side, you can lay the boards flat again and line them up evenly. Then take your 3 1x3 boards that you cut earlier, put some glue on them, and once they are glued, flip them over onto the 1x4s and use the 1.25 inch brad nails to attach the 1x3s to the 1x4s. As far as placement of these 1x3s, it's not super important. Just kind of make them evenly spread out across the back. Once you have this panel of 1x4 boards connected, you're ready to attach them to the headboard you created. This was honestly a bit of a pain in the butt, but it's doable. I set it up against a wall upside down and then lined up the panel of boards on the headboard below the second 2x4. Make sure the 1x4 with the pocket holes at the top goes up against the middle 2x4 so you can attach it to that. The goal here is to have the panel of boards about 1 inch away from the back of the 4x4 board on the headboard and 1.5 inch space in the front of the 4x4. My recommendation on this is to measure a lot and go one board at a time until you're happy with the results. Attach all the pocket hole screws and get help if you can. After all the Kreg screws are attached, you can flip it back upright and set it up against a wall so you can start tackling the footboard. Now, set your 2 remaining 4x4s on the floor and put pocket holes on both sides of the other 2 60-inch 2x4s that you cut out earlier, if you haven't already. Once you have the pocket holes on both ends of the 2x4s, lay them down and line them up on the 4x4s. The first one will again be flush with the top of the 4x4s, and the second one will be 24.25 inches from the bottom of the 4x4s. Again, be cognizant of your pocket hole locations and make sure that they're out of sight as much as possible. Next, you want to take 4 more 1x4 boards and cut them to 60 inches. I did some of this out of order, so ignore the fact that there is some more progress on the headboard. We will get to that later. This time I decided to put pocket holes on both ends of the 4 1x4s and the tops of each 1x4 for extra stability. Also, I did not want to do the 1x3s on the back because on the footboard you're going to be able to see them. So I was trying to keep it as pretty as possible, but in the end you end up seeing the pocket holes, so you can kind of decide what you prefer. And honestly, for this next part I didn't get the best camera angle because someone knocked over one of my cameras, but you basically want to attach your panel of 1x4s to the footboard underneath the lower 2x4 closer to the floor. This is done exactly like you did it on the headboard, except it's a lot smaller and a little bit easier. Once you have the footboard put together, you can set it aside and we can start working on the side rails, bed supports, and everything else. Off camera, my wife and I sanded all these boards. Make sure you sand your wood. If you do not sand it, the project will be depressing and disappointing. Trust me, I know, because I've done it. I always sand with an orbital sander and 150 grit sandpaper, and it always comes out pretty nice, but definitely sand it. And trust me guys, I know, sanding is the worst. Now, let's start working on the bed support. The only reason we're going to do this next is because it helps hold the bed up while attaching everything else. What you want to do is cut out 3 2x4s at 83 inches. 1 for each side, left and right, and 1 for the middle. Then cut out 1 2x4 at 60 inches and drill pocket holes on each side of this one. Finally, cut out 2 2x4s at 15 inches. These will be feet that add extra support to the bed. We're actually going to set aside 2 of the 83-inch boards you just cut for now. We're going to attach them at the very end of this project, and you don't need to attach them now. But we will take 1 of the 2x4s that we cut at 83 inches and drill pocket holes on each side of it. Then you need to take your 2 15-inch 2x4 legs and assemble them to the center of this board. Now, it's fairly simple. I didn't really put in a measurement here, but kind of place them offset like I did, so that they're going to hold up the bed and add extra support. Once you have the 2 feet attached, go ahead and attach one end of the 83-inch 2x4 to the center of the 60-inch 2x4 you cut, on the same side as the pocket holes you drilled. Do make sure you measure and center this board, because that is going to make a difference later on. Once you have this T-shaped support with feet assembled, you can attach it to the headboard. I did this by laying the headboard flat on its back and then lining up the support piece flush with the back of the bed, on the floor basically. You want to measure and mark the boards so you can make sure this gets connected at 11.5 inches from the floor, well, not the floor, but the bottom of the 4x4s. Now you'll want to attach this with pocket hole screws, just like you've been attaching everything else. Once this is attached, you can most likely stand up the headboard. Just be careful not to drop it, but it is a little bit easier to work on once you get everything stood up, so I was excited about that. Now let's see about getting the footboard attached. At this point in the project, I really wanted to get it connected so I could get the side rails connected. Remember earlier we drilled pocket holes on both sides of this 83-inch crossboard. So what I did is I tried just connecting pocket screws to the footboard and that 83-inch board. But because it's a 1x4 panel and I was using 2.5-inch screws on a 2x4, the screws ended up being a little too long and they popped out the side of the 1x4s, so you could actually see the little screw heads. So I backed them out a little bit, and unfortunately I just took a pocket hole screw straight through the front of the footboard into that 2x4 to hold it in place. Now I may do something to improve this later on, like attach a smaller 2x4 from the inside side rail to this centerpiece with pocket hole screws. That would definitely work. I'm not super happy with how this came out, but it's really unnoticeable when you're standing even a couple feet away from the bed. Next, we're going to cut the side rails. It's 4 side rails, and there's 2 for the top and 2 for the bottom. For this, we want to cut 2 2x4s at 80 inches for the top side rails and 2 2x10s at 80 inches for the bottom side rails. Once we have these cut, we will drill pocket holes on each end of the 2x4s and 2x10s. Now, with this, I did 2 pocket holes on each side of the 2x4s and 3 on each side of the 2x10s. Once I had the pocket holes drilled, I went ahead and attached the 2x10s to the bottom left and right, basically flush with the outside edge of the 4x4 post. Now you want to measure both sides when you attach these side rails, these bottom ones, and make sure that the bottom 2x10s are 8 1/4 inches from the bottom of the 4x4s. Repeat this on both sides so it's level. You may need help holding up one side of the 2x10 while you attach the other side because they're really heavy and cumbersome. Now just attach both sides with your pocket screws. Once you have the bottom side rails attached, you can move to the top side rails. These are pretty easy, but you'll probably need a little step ladder to attach them. You will use 2 83-inch 2x4s that you had cut and added pocket screws to earlier. Then just attach both ends of the 2x4 flush with the top and edge of the 4x4s with pocket hole screws. Remember, the pocket hole screw should be facing up. The next step is to add a nice little finishing touch to the headboard and footboard. For this, I cut out 2 pieces of 1x3 at 60 inches and 2 1x2 pieces at 60 inches. Then I put wood glue on the back of these boards and I attached them to the headboard with 1 1/4 brad nails. I did the 1x3s at the bottom of the headboard and footboard and the 1x2s at the top of the headboard and footboard. This is optional, but it adds some more dimension to the bed, and I do think it helps hide mistakes. One of my 1x4s looked pretty bad, so this really kind of helps cover that up. You may notice I already stained these pieces and sanded them before I even attached them. This is actually a really good method to use when you're building, but for me, since I'm impatient and I want to see progress, I usually end up sanding and painting once I get everything put together. This time I kind of did it both ways. I was sanding while building, and then my wife helped me, so I got kind of the best of both worlds. Okay, now we need to find the 2 extra 83-inch 2x4s we cut out a bit earlier when we were working on the bottom support, because it's time to attach those to the bed. What you want to do here is attach the 2 2x4s to the 4x4s on each side of the bed with 2.5-inch screws. I used some extra pocket hole screws for this. Make sure that your 2x4 is flush with the top of the 2x4 on the bottom of the headboard. Once you have that attached, you can use a level if you have one, and make sure the board is level when you attach it to the 4x4 at the footboard. If you don't have a level, you can do it by eye. I just used a level because I have one. Repeat this step on both sides and try to get everything as level as possible. Even if it's not perfect, don't stress though. This is under the mattress. Really, it's gonna be hidden, but it does kind of hold the bed, so you want it to not be too crooked or you could just fall off. Okay, so now that that's all attached, we can start working on the slats at the bottom of the bed for the mattress to sit on. To do this, you'll want to take your 1x4 scraps from when you cut the headboard and footboard and cut them to 31 inches each. You will also need to use a few of your remaining 1x4s to actually make enough for the whole thing. I ended up needing 23 of these 1x4s cut at 31 inches for full coverage. You can see my wandering around the garage trying to find suitable scrap pieces so I could get the most bang for my buck with my wood. In the end, I found enough pieces and got them all cut out. Once you have all these 1x4s cut out, All you need to do is line them up on the bed supports like I'm doing in the video. Basically alternate between the left and right side. This should create a really strong slat system. You can of course use more boards or less, but I want it to be really secure, so I did it this way and maybe went a little overboard. Once you have them all laid out, it's a simple matter of screwing them into the supports. I use 1.5 inch screws for this, but you can use longer ones if that's all you have. At this point in time, my bed is pretty much done. You'll want to paint it or stain it if you haven't already, and maybe even put a little polyurethane on it if you do stain it. So the next big step will be bringing it inside. I know it seems kind of crazy that I put the whole bed together and then just had to take it all apart to bring it inside, but that's just the way I like to do it. I kind of prefer sanding it when it's in big pieces like that, and same with painting and staining. If you want, you could hold off on attaching pretty much any of these things until you bring it inside. It'll be easier to carry around, but I like to challenge myself, as you can tell. I liked the idea, for example, of moving that whole bottom slat piece as one big piece, because I figured it would be just easier that way. But it was actually a huge pain to take the slats out all together like that, and I would probably recommend just waiting to assemble this part till when you get in the room, wherever you want it. Another fairly huge problem I had at this point was the bed really wanted to fall down and hit me in the head, or damage itself. I had to work hard to keep it from falling while detaching the pieces, and this is another one of those situations where getting help is a good idea. So, anyways, we got the remainder of the bed inside, and I assembled it in the room it was going to live in. I did not record myself assembling it though, just because I couldn't find a good angle for the camera because it's a fairly small room, and I'm not a pro cameraman. But you know how to assemble it already because you just finished building it, so you shouldn't have any issues reassembling it. Now, as far as a mattress, most people might already have a mattress who are watching this video, but I did not have a queen. I had a full, so I'm selling the full-size mattress, and I bought one of those mattresses in a box on Amazon. It's a queen mattress. I think it was like $220, so it's pretty cheap for a mattress. I'll link it to the description below. It seems fine for the price. It's fine. It's a guest room. Not a big deal. My kids got a huge kick out of the fact that it came in a small box and ended up growing so big. The plastic wrap was pretty frustrating to remove, honestly, but I did get it off eventually. And after a few hours, the mattress had grown to full size, so I went ahead and put the bedding on it and decorated it the way that my wife wanted it. This was a fun project, and I really enjoyed making this bed. I hope that you were able to make it as well. And if you enjoyed the video, if you could, go ahead and give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I want to make more videos like these in the future, so that just helps me know that you're enjoying them. Again, thanks guys, and any questions you have, feel free to comment below and I'll try to answer.